Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. It is even chillier today than earlier this week when I was out here, and I don't really know how to feel about that. I have to put on long sleeves for the first time this entire season, so it's a little bit of an adjustment. I know it's much colder just about everywhere else in the US, but it's a little chilly for me right now. I don't know what to say. But I did get my garlic in, I got my sweet potatoes out, and I'm finally ready to actually get it planted in this bed. I am so looking forward to getting this started well before a freeze. While it is cooler, I don't see any freeze on the 10-day forecast, so I think the garlic should have enough time to get acclimated into the ground, and it'll all be good. It just looks so cute in the golden hour light. But I got my box here. I'm gonna put Nutmeg down. I'm sure he will be supervising later on in this video. Got a cute little thank you note here. Packing slip. And then I got two different varieties of garlic. The first one is one that I typically order every season. This, I think, is my third time ordering it. That is my Alio Blanco. I got a 1/4 pound. I have learned from the past where the first year I didn't order enough garlic, the second year I ordered too much. I think I've got the perfect happy medium in terms of what I need for garlic. And my last order, I've ordered every year from Fillory Garlic Farm, and it's always been great. The last order though, I think I harvested the garlic right at the perfect time because I was still eating garlic in September, I think. When I ran out, so it lasted from April to September. Absolutely wonderful. Not really that many went bad, and I got it out of the ground a little early, but it was right before we got a ton of rain, so I preserved all of that garlic, and it was just a great season. So I'm hoping to replicate that again. This will be my last season growing garlic in this garden, so I want to do it right. I want to go out with a bang with this crop. So I've got the Alio Blanco. The other one that I ordered was called Asian Tempest. It was my first time growing that last year, and I really loved how it turned out, but unfortunately they ran out and they gave me a substitution. Looks like they gave me Inchellium Red. I didn't know what they were substituting with. I've grown this before and it did great, so I'm glad that they gave me that substitution, one that I am familiar with. I'm a little sad I'm going to miss out on those giant bulbs from the Asian Tempest, but you never know with the military. I don't know where I could live in the future, so there's always more opportunities to grow Asian Tempest again. This is still a delicious garlic, and I love actually the purple papers on the cloves. So I think it'll be just as fun to grow this as it would have been to grow the Asian Tempest. And it looks like I got a 1/4 pound of this as well, but I got 3 bulbs, and it feels like it's a lot more than this. So I don't know. Maybe I got an extra bulb just because of the substitution, but I'm not going to complain about that. I can already tell there is some sprouting on these bulbs, so they are ready to go. They look firm, look super healthy, ready to go in the garden. I see Saffron is digging around in here, if you can hear her screaming. She'll probably help out. Oh, there she is. She'll probably help out a bit too. The cats are always just running around in the garden. So we're going to get the bed prepped first, then I gotta separate out the garlic, and then finally planting. Hello, you ready to plant some garlic today? What do you think? Not really your thing? That's all right. So I was prepping this bed, and I actually found a sweet potato that I missed. I don't know how I missed this, but this is gonna go with the other sweet potatoes that are currently curing, and I will actually be using for my Thanksgiving meal. So I'll go add it to those, but hey, found another sweet potato. The first thing I want to do is just map out this space, how many rows and columns I'm going to fit into this 6x4 raised garden bed. Typically, I think I usually do 6x8, which fits 48 cloves of garlic. That'll be 48 bulbs in the spring. And then I usually have a little bit of overflow that I put into a different garden bed. I've picked a different one every year just based off of the space that I have. So I'm going to go for 6x8 again, see how it works, and then I guess figure out where if I have any left over, where they'll go. Even with the flowers in here, I was able to fit all 48 spots with a little bit of help from Nutmeg. I've tried to line them up as evenly as possible. This might seem a little close, but honestly, the bulbs don't get crazy big, so I feel like the spacing works, at least for my climate and with this bed. So 48 is a great number. And then I'm debating where I'm going to put the extras, but this is a good amount to work with. The next step is to simply separate out the garlic cloves. You want to leave the skins on as much as possible. I'm just going to throw extra skins in the raised bed. They'll serve as mulch in some capacity. The biggest cloves is what you want to shoot for when you are being selective about the garlic. And since I usually have more cloves than I have spaces, I always go for the biggest ones and then narrow it down to the smaller ones. So the Alio Blanco has a lot of really nice, decent sized cloves here. And they're breaking apart pretty easily, which is a plus. This one is massive, so that's great. Looks like there's maybe 8 to 10 cloves per bulb here. Not going to complain about that. These are the 2 biggest ones. So I've got to break all of that up and then they'll be ready for planting. And it looks like this year it's going to be pretty easy. Last year I just had so many and then it got down to a bunch of really tiny ones that I ended up just eating. I just brought them inside, ate them like normal garlic. They just weren't worth all of the effort. And I'm glad I did because I got the perfect amount of garlic last year by using all of the biggest ones. And I actually got the biggest bulbs that I've ever grown, which was really neat. I mean, not all of them turned out quite as big as these, but it was really nice. I had never grown garlic before I moved here, so it was just something I tried out, not knowing much about how to do it, just learning from reading online. The grow guides on the website for Fillory Garlic Farm are incredible, so I highly recommend those when you're ordering your garlic. I had no idea just how many varieties there were for so many different climates. So it has been really helpful growing garlic that is best suited for this climate. And then knowing the possibility of moving to a colder climate is very high with the next move. So knowing that I have options for that as well. See, this is so much smaller right here. This little guy, so he probably won't get planted. I've got so many other large cloves here, so some selective planting will be taking place for sure. First up is the Alio Blanco, and there are some important things to note when you are planting your garlic. The first is you want it to be pointy side up when you place it. That is where it's going to sprout and grow your garlic leaves. The next thing is that you want, if you can, to have all of your garlic facing the same direction. That way you're going to have the leaves all growing the same way and they won't be touching each other. So that is something that I learned in more recent years, but it is helpful a lot. I did notice it last year, and it avoids things like rust and disease spreading, all of those things. And then the last thing is you want to make sure, if possible, that there is paper covering your garlic clove. It's okay if a little bit of it breaks off, but you want to try to avoid as much of it breaking off as possible. I've got a couple where there's a little bit exposed, but if the entire thing is exposed, then it is more likely to rot in those early stages. You also want to be planting at least a couple weeks before a freeze because you want the garlic to establish itself and start growing before the freeze would happen. That way it doesn't die off in those early stages. So I noticed there wasn't anything on the 10-day forecast that led me to believe we're going to have a freeze. So I think it's safe to plant this garlic. I don't think I'll be able to wait too much longer. just based on the fact that it's going to be November, and typically we have our first freeze here before Thanksgiving, but we haven't had it yet, so that is a-okay with me. And because we live in a milder climate, typically after that first freeze, we do have a period of time where it is a little bit warmer before we have another freeze. So maybe I could thread that needle and plant it after the first freeze. But I know in a lot of more northern climates, that just isn't the case. So I would recommend, if you can, get your garlic in the ground before that first freeze. Gotta make sure I label the rows so I don't forget what I'm growing here. Well, this has never happened before, but I was actually short on garlic cloves. So I have 42, I counted, and I made spaces for 48. I'm not going to bother resetting this and making it 6x7, which I could do, but I'm gonna have a few empty spaces. That's totally okay. It's close enough to the amount that I needed, but it's very odd. I've never been short before. So it is what it is. I think they'll still grow fine, but yeah, not quite what I was expecting. Just finishing up here, covering up my garlic, but I did want to point out also some of the garlic that have already sprouted. You have the first little green leaf coming out there. So just want to make sure that that is pointed up. That is one of the most crucial things. And even sometimes just leaving it a little bit exposed, if it's tall enough, can be helpful. So that one's exposed there. It just helps the garlic along if it's possible. Sometimes they're not sprouted at all. Sometimes they are a lot more than this. Just kind of depends on the batch you get each year, but it can be a helpful thing. So that's it for my garlic bed. It is all set up now. A little bit of a surprise that I wasn't able to fill up all the spots. That's never happened before, but I filled up 42 of 48. So it's not like it's the end of the world. I'm not at a crazy shortage. It should still be a perfect amount. We're not going to be living in this house for the full calendar year next year. So I think it'll be fine. Either way, still going to have a lot of garlic. I got it all planted on time. I'm very proud of myself for that as well. And of course, I had some help from my sweet kitties. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to give Nutmeg and I here a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thanks again. We'll catch you in the next one.